The biggest mistake Kristen Bell ever made was cool-girling her way into this terrible marriage. She was a victim of the early 2000s cool girl epidemic, and now she is a victim of this horrible, horrible man. Worst part about it is that she has brainwashed herself into not only thinking that their relationship is good, but also trying to normalize it, even play it off as a good romantic thing that her husband said this to her. On their 12th wedding anniversary, I'm sure you all have already seen it and a lot of commentary has been made about it, but I'm here to zoom out a little because the cool girl epidemic, it's gonna come back around, I'm predicting, in about the next 5 to 10 years. I'll get into that, but let's read the post first. She says, "Happy 12th wedding anniversary to the man who once said to me, I would never unalive you. A lot of men have unalived their wives at a certain point. Even though I'm heavily incentivized to unalive you, I never would." To understand why any sane person would think, say, let alone post the entire world something like this, you need to understand that this really was an epidemic of the worst kind in the early 2000s, which is when myself and a lot of other young women were going through their formative years, like their frontal lobe formative years. I can actually trace it back to one exact moment in time, okay? Again, if you're a woman my age, you know exactly what is behind me right now. You don't recognize this beautiful young lady. This is Megan Fox in the first Transformers movie. This was the beginning of the cool girl archetype. Absolutely took the young men in America and probably all over the world by absolute storm. The amount of lockers that had a Megan Fox poster, the teenage boys' rooms that was covered in Megan Fox posters. This sent a very loud and clear message to young women. You need to be more like Megan Fox. Okay? Guys don't want women that are going to make them like chase after them and make them pay on dates and want men to buy them nice things, etc. Unsurprisingly came out right around the Great Recession of the early 2000s and persisted till right about 2015, 2016. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's when we started sort of calling it out more and more. Then there was the movie Gone Girl that absolutely subverted this stereotype and kind of exposed it for what it is, which is really just the other side of the Tradwife coin. Let's talk about that. Because as much as they wanted us to pretend like it was, this was not a sign of female liberation or even empowerment. This was another performance for the male gaze. I guess Kristen Bell really made it her mission to become the poster girl for the cool girl. During this time, a lot of young women became convinced that they would become irresistible to men if they just stuck to this performance of not like the other girls. Drinking beer with the guys, laughing at their crass jokes, talking about how hypersexual you are, especially when you're in a relationship, talking about how you're down to have threesomes, do all sorts of taboo things in bed, watch porn while you have sex, all that kind of stuff. When all we have is empowerment, there's always the temptation amongst the marginalized class to become a class traitor. Because really the problem is that not only are we contending against men, and empowerment keeps the patriarchy intact, right? So not only do we have men to contend against, we also have sort of class traitors and women that will operate within that oppressive system in a way that ultimately betrays other women. That was the whole point of the Not Like Other Girls movement. It was to set yourself apart from other women as though you are not in the same oppressed class, as though you can actually approximate yourself to the power of men. And by being just like one of the guys, you can avoid the fate of the wives that men cheat on with the cool girls. And in case you didn't know, I actually have a podcast, and we just did a whole episode this week about this very phenomenon. And not enough of you know that I have a podcast. Please go check it out. I'll tag it down here. I'm really hoping you guys will check out the full episode. So where the Tradwife says, I'll earn love by serving you, the cool girl says, I'll earn love by being effortless for you. And the danger here is that both of these are just performances around the male gaze and for the ultimate male comfort. at women's expense. It's always at women's expense. And so Kristen Bell definitely came up and became famous around this cool girl era. There was so much media messaging around this, including movies like Something About Mary, the aforementioned Transformers movie. I'm a cool but hot nerd who like eats pizza and drinks beer. That was very much the era that we were living in. So when she first got together with Dax Shepard, everybody, like the media, was eating this up because she made her living off of being like the quirky girl who's just like one of the guys, and everybody loved them together. They loved how real she was and how down to earth she was. Even more so, they loved that Dax Shepard was like this imperfect character. He was deeply flawed. He was kind of chaotic. And the two of them were just like this couple that really met the moment. And Dax's whole archetype was the puzzle piece to the cool girl puzzle piece. Again, culturally, he would be resistant to the relationship. He would be resistant to commitment, resistant to marriage. He's a bad boy that rides motorcycles and has open relationships and all this stuff. This is all factual. Like, I'm not making this up. This is all factual. They dated for 3 years, were engaged for 3 more years before finally getting married. And his commentary on marriage was like, I never want to get married because then what leverage do you have left? So he was very much that bad boy archetype. And Kristen Bell was supposed to be the cool girl that sort of met and like tamed and pacified him, gave him babies, and just became like one of his like appendages, one of his personality traits or whatever. They had a very tumultuous relationship. They talk about it all the time. They in fact have had several like really uncomfortable conversations, podcast episodes or whatever, where it was kind of like, are you guys okay? They're one of those like marriage is really hard couples, but we fight through it every day. We wake up and fight for our marriage, but it's so hard, and like you guys have no idea how hard it is, etc. The conclusion is always, oh well, you know, it's messy but it works. It's rough around the edges, but it's like a diamond in the rough. This was supposed to be relatable to a lot of people, and at the time it was, because a lot of women were embracing this cool girl archetype and sort of trying to perform for men that way, and men were taking advantage of that because there was this idea that became normalized that emotional dysregulation and I guess turbulence is kind of the price of passion, the price of happiness, the price of true love. But the quiet part of that is that it's the woman's job to manage it. Once again, just like the Tradwife perfects being submissive and sort of calibrates herself to walk on eggshells around a man's like feelings and frustrations, needs and wants, etc. The cool girl does the exact same thing, except for it's presented as chill and not as submission. But they are the same exact thing. You are still never supposed to be too much for the man to handle. You're never supposed to really challenge him on anything. You're never supposed to make him feel like he's not enough. Never supposed to ask him to put forth any effort, really at all. He's just supposed to do whatever he wants, and then you're just supposed to deal with it. That's the trap of the cool girl. It's the same as the trap of the Tradwife. You're expected to build your entire identity around being understanding, around being flexible, endlessly patient, endlessly forgiving. This is once again especially dangerous when it comes to men like Dax Shepard, who has no problem saying the quiet part out loud that he's a terrible person and that he's like a work in progress, and he's open about all of his issues and open about never wanting her in the first place, nagging her and all this stuff. And you're supposed to take all that shit on the chin. You're supposed to like sit there and smile and nod along as your husband talks about how he didn't want to cast you in his movies and how he purposely wrote these like weird parts for you that were basically nagging in disguise, or him outing you for wanting to impress him, how he wasn't really even into that. God forbid, a gorgeous, successful woman, one of the most wanted young women of her time, like God forbid she wants to hang out with you, a loser with a slew of issues and bad decisions. But the cool girl mentality tricked women into judging their value based on how they adapt to male volatility. It's another iteration of that's my man and I'm gonna stick beside him. I'm gonna be there for him through thick and thin. I'm a ride or die. Same exact thing. Cool girl is not actually cool. She's a performance. She exists to garner male validation. And it's interesting how many people are like criticizing this marriage and acting as if it's like uniquely toxic. Meanwhile, we're living in this Tradwife moment at the same time where we talk about divine femininity and your soft girl era and the I'm just a girl. And I don't want to work under a fluorescent light. I don't want to drive to the office every day, etc. Because all of this is a performance for the male gaze. And the reason that it changes and it seems like this pendulum like keeps swinging every couple years is because men don't actually know what they want. They just want control over women. Like anytime that we get too comfortable actually like liberating ourselves from these roles and demanding not just empowerment but liberation, men just move the goalposts. And they're like, no, if you want love, if you want partnership, you're gonna have to be like this. One side of the coin where you're like sexually liberated and you're into threesomes and you want to drink beer with the guys and you eat corn dogs and whatever. Or we're going to move the goalpost to now we don't want these independent women. We don't want these women with degrees. We don't want the women that try to be like men. We want feminine women, okay? We don't care for your independence. We don't want masculine women. We want feminine women and women who have been raised with the idea that romance is the most valuable endeavor that they will ever commit themselves to. Fall for it every single time. The problem really is that these men don't even like themselves. That's why they don't like any version of you. You know, that's why they always take advantage of these women who seemingly like bend over backwards, who already give them too much leeway, who are way out of their league. What they're really afraid of is facing themselves. This is why they hate successful women. This is why they hate submissive women. This is why they hate the cool girls. It doesn't matter. It's because they hate themselves. A lot of these men are actually hopelessly narcissistic. Dax Shepard might actually be a full-blown narcissist. He will take any chance to shit on his wife, to nag her, embarrass her, humiliate her, etc. It's because he feels humiliated just by being next to her. She is everything that he could never be. She's actually effortlessly quirky, effortlessly likable, effortlessly lucky. All of these things fucking piss him off because he is a never-ending work in progress. He just keeps laying all of his burdens on the shoulders of this poor woman. And this is what performing for the male gaze will attract. Narcissistic men, men who want to see themselves and their desires reflected in women over and over and over again at those women's expense. This is their payback to the fact that cannot and will not be held down by the patriarchy as a whole. Yes, a lot of us succumb to it. Yes, a lot of us are victims of it. Yes, a lot of us pay for the price of the patriarchy with our lives, and yet the vast majority of us have not been broken, ruined, or debased, or made irrelevant by the patriarchy, because the patriarchy actually needs us more than it needs men. It needs our labor, our creativity, our ingenuity, our flexibility, adaptability, cooperation, all of those things. The patriarchy actually doesn't need like anything really from men other than their violence, other than the threat of that. That's why they love to make us perform. They love to put that peer pressure on us of like, you're not cool unless you're this. Men want this, not this. It's about time that we actually become liberated and realize that nobody that wants us to perform in a certain way is actually for us or actually loves us in any way, shape, or form. Anyone who's gonna embrace the role of being like your project or someone you have to always walk on eggshells around, like anytime you have a moment of recognition or success or anything, they're just there to remind you that like, you'll never be good enough for me though. That's really how Dax Shepard acts with Kristen Bell. He hates himself and therefore he hates her. That's really all there is to it. Hope this helps. Once again, please check out my podcast. I love y'all. Have a great day. Godspeed.